Good afternoon and welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our very first virtual Smart Growth Subcabinet Public Forum. I'm Wendy Peters, and I serve as the chair of the Smart Growth Subcabinet. The Smart Growth Subcabinet is required by statute to meet twice a year with our county, municipal elected leaders, and local planning officials to discuss government issues related to activities that affect smart growth, development, neighborhood conservation, and resource management. As you know, we usually conduct the summer forum at our NNL conference, but due this year to COVID-19, we're holding this forum virtually. The last several months have been very challenging for everyone. With Governor Hogan's leadership and all of us working together, we've been able to work to slow the spread. We remain vigilant, and now we also focus on the recovery across our state for our families, our businesses, and our communities. Just prior to COVID-19, we began as a subcabinet working to improve the delivery of programs and services provided by the agencies within the subcabinet. And our work on that continues today. The Hogan administration is committed to continuing to work together in our recovery. We're joined today by secretaries or their designees from 14 state agencies. We're here to share information on resources and tools to assist local government partners with Maryland Strong, the roadmap to recovery. A couple of quick little housekeeping things. First, we want to orient you with some of the GoToWebinar features you can be using today. If you have a question for any of our speakers, you can submit it at any time by using the questions tool in the control panel located on the right side of your screen. We'll have a question and answer session after the presentation by all of the state agencies. Following the roadmap to recovery presentations, we'll actually have the public forum with questions and answers presented by the county municipal elected leaders and planning officials. Please submit your questions or comments using the questions toolbar for both sections. We'll get as many of the questions in as we have time for. We are scheduled to go until 4, but I do remind everybody that Governor Hogan has an important press conference at 3:30, so we'll see if we can wrap things up in time to do that. If you look on the side, you'll also note under the handout section, we have a copy of the agenda, so you know the order in which we'll be moving forward. We'll be recording this session so it could be used as a resource later, or you can share with your staff or others. And again, I thank you very much for your attendance today, and I look forward to continuing to work with each of you. I'd like to now introduce the Secretary for the Department of Planning, Rob McCord.
Thank you, and good morning, everyone. Thank you, Secretary Peters. From my standpoint, the Department of Planning is still operating on all cylinders, although mostly remotely. We are still having a decent amount of communication between the local governments and the Department of Planning. Most of it's happening virtually anyway, so it's still lots and lots of things going on. I've highlighted 4 here for you. I sit also as the chair of the Maryland Heritage Area Authority, and so we granted 59 matching grants for over $600,000 for heritage tourism nonprofits in the 13 certified Maryland heritage areas. That's important because those areas are kind of starved for activity, and we want to make sure that we could either convert some of the grants that we normally give to operating grants to make sure these entities can continue, and make sure that their programming, when it got switched to virtual programming, they had funding to be able to switch to virtual programming for some of their activities. We also did $5.1 million worth of regular grants in the regular grant round. So if you're in a certified heritage area in Maryland, you are able to get some access to some funding to keep things going for you. So we're proud to have been able to do that. The Jefferson Patterson Park and Museum in Calvert County has remained open. It has lots and lots of visitors. It has had increased visitation. We have lost lots of visits from people coming to events because the events had to be canceled. But it has been open for citizens since the crisis began, and it remains open for citizens. We worked hard to come up with a concept for micro weddings so that the local health department in Calvert County approved our concept for micro weddings, where people are going to a smaller 10-person service and small party situation. Only 2 could happen per day with 2 hours in between for the cleaning. It has been a way to replace some of the revenue that we've lost on the large wedding venue activities that we've had there. But it's more importantly a way to keep things moving along for people who want to have a wedding and then get on with the other things they have with their life. So we are becoming a place for people to do that. All the online programming that's gone on down at Jefferson Patterson Park and Museum is to make sure that the people that would have otherwise come to the park are still able to get the benefit of the history and the archaeology that's going on there. They can still participate and virtually understand what's happening at the park. So you need to check out the Jefferson Patterson Park and Museum's website and the Facebook page for everything that's happening down there. They've done a splendid job of keeping everything going to make sure that Maryland's history is being preserved and that people can access that. And of course, no one hears from me without hearing about the census. The census, we are at this point, we just slipped to 13th in the nation after being 12th in the nation for a while, and at one point 11th in the nation. We're not resting until we are basically in that top 10, and we're just 0.3% out of the top 10. Those numbers refresh at 3 o'clock every day, so potentially by the time we're finished this, those numbers will refresh again. And the municipalities are coming on strong. There are lots and lots of people that live in municipalities, and the municipalities are doing a fantastic job. So Mount Airy is number 12 at the moment in Maryland for response rate. So we have to be concerned about all the hard to count areas that we were concerned about in the beginning. Now the census is extended until October 31st, and the deadline for the numbers to go to the president has been requested to be extended. The census can extend its outreach as long as it wants, but the numbers delivery has to happen by an act of Congress. One house of Congress has approved the extension until July 31st of 2021 to get the numbers to the president. So that's the numbers that we will use to formulate the new census districts, the census blocks that form the districts for redistricting. So that process is halfway to being, the delay is almost finished there. So we're doing our best. Whatever you hear in the news about census, we are still committed to counting every person in Maryland. Our commitment to get a full and complete count has not wavered. It means $16 billion worth of funding for Maryland. So we haven't wavered in our commitment to try to get everybody counted. One of the latest tools we put on the census website is we've overlaid all of the food distribution areas with the census tracts, and you can see where the low census tract response areas are and the food distribution areas, and the local complete count committees are using those maps to make sure they're getting census information and messaging out where people are coming to pick up food, and we're working with the Maryland Food Bank to get information in the food boxes to make sure people understand the importance of the census and that count. The United States Census Bureau will be sending out this week postcards for reminders to people. So we've had a faith weekend where we've made sure we've participated with pastors in getting the word out. So pastors and moms and people in synagogues all got the word that the census is still happening and it's still important. So that is a major activity that will consume us until the last day of the ability to respond. And as a general matter, the regional planners have been remotely assisting the local planning and public participation efforts. We have been hosting webinars every couple of weeks, and our webinars have got lots and lots of viewership. So we've had over 1,000 viewers on some of the webinars. We're talking about experts who will inform you about reinventing the suburbs, talk about the missing middle and housing, talk about affordable housing, talk about biking, how we can how bikes can be a part of reimagining your city or your town. So we've been doing as best we can to make sure that everybody gets back to the way they want to be and how you would vision your future based on what's happening to us today. So we're giving people lots and lots to think about, and we will remain the technical assistance experts for you in the area of planning. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Rob. We're scheduled next to hear from the Secretary from the Department of Agriculture, but I understand that he is delayed in joining us. So I would just like to advise everyone that certainly the Department of Ag is open to serve you and taking calls and out there doing their job. They're working very closely with the food production industry and businesses throughout our state. They continue to provide updated guidance. And right now, you know, we just finished last week with our full buy local promotions, and they're going to continue those promotions with regard to buying local Maryland products. So please keep that in mind as you go to your farm stand. Great. Next up, we'll hear from the Secretary of Commerce, Kelly Schultz.
Hello, thank you so much, Secretary Peters. It's great to see you. I'm very happy to talk about this. I know some folks that are from the counties and the municipalities have heard kind of my updates on some of our calls over the last several months, but this is good news to report. Back on March 23rd, the governor responded to the emergency business crisis, the economic challenges that we would be facing in the coming months, with $125 million going into a loan and grant fund, an additional $5 million going into a manufacturing incentive fund for those manufacturers to start producing PPE. The loans was $75 million for small businesses up to 50 employees, and that was for up to a $50,000 zero interest loan for the first year, and then a 2% interest loan for the following 3 years. The grants was a $10,000 grant option, and that $50 million has been completely expended at this point in time. Similar to the loans, that $75 million has been accounted for, and those funds are no longer available. However, just last month, the governor announced that an additional $50 million would be coming to the Department of Commerce to alleviate some of the economic realities and impacts on the business community. $45 million of that is going back into that grant program. We did receive over 20,000 grant applications over a 2-week period of time. We were able to satisfy a little over 5,000 businesses with the first round of $50 million, and we are actively working to approve the next in line for the first in, first out spectrum for the additional $45 million. The additional $5 million that what has come in for the Department of Commerce, we moved over to our MISBIDFA fund, which is the Maryland Small Business Disadvantaged Business Fund. And that is being utilized in order to be able to create, again, 0% interest and very, very convenient terms for the small businesses, those that are socially and economically disadvantaged. That's an existing fund, but we added $5 million to their loaning capabilities, and we're excited to be able to have that as a focal point. Additionally, I'll say that our partners, and I know they may talk about this, DHCD, Housing and Community Development coming up, they received $50 million in June as well from the governor's distribution of the CARES Act funding. And they have graciously worked with the Department of Commerce to look at all of the nonprofits that had originally applied for the grants back in March. And so they have given the Department of Commerce of their $50 million up to $8 million to satisfy every nonprofit grant application that we have remaining. And that's between 600 and 700 grant applications at this point in time that we'll be able to fund based on their request. So we're very appreciative of that. And additionally, DHCD had offered to promote our arts community. So they are also offering the Department of Commerce, our Maryland State Arts Council, $3 million to continue on with the $1 million grant process that they were able to achieve with now the additional $3 million, looking at those arts programs to be able to make sure that our cultural entities are taken care of as well. So we're thrilled about that. So it's estimated that well over 11,000 total transactions from the state of Maryland's funds will be utilized. And as you know, kind of the bigger picture looks, when we roll in our federal programs and our county programs, there's been probably over 150,000 business transactions that have occurred through some type of a business relief program through the SBA, the Department of Commerce, DHCD, and our county partners as well. So we're very pleased to be able to continue on making sure that Maryland remains open for business. The Manufacturing Incentive Fund was a really interesting program that we in Maryland put together, and it's now become a conversation on a national level with some of our economic development partners across the country to be able to provide some type of grant funding. This was up to $100,000 for additional manufacturing equipment or training in order to just kind of shift what their normal operations were in the manufacturing world to be able to provide those critical need items at the height of the crisis. Although those PPE things that we talk about and that the Department of Health and the Maryland Emergency Management Agency puts on a critical needs list, everything from gloves and hand sanitizers and parts for ventilators and hospital gowns, anything that rose to the occasion, our very innovative manufacturers across the state have been able to capitalize and become a part of that production in order to be able to assist in the pandemic efforts. And so we're very, very pleased and proud of them. The Department of Commerce created a Back to Business website with guidance for businesses. We developed 13 advisory groups, industry advisory groups, specifically to talk about what it would mean. We started at the end of March, going into April and May, about what it would mean to open responsibly and safely for the employees and the general public. The Back to Business website provides the information and the best practices that we created with the Department of Health in order to provide guidance to those businesses so that they would have an opportunity to do their business in a safe and healthy way. We're very proud of that. We also have the Back to Business pledge that businesses can print off, and they can post that on their in their place of business so that the customers and the employees know that there is a commitment based on the ownership's commitment to be able to make sure that we can stay open by cleaning surfaces regularly, by making sure that there's training for employees, making sure that people are wearing their masks, et cetera. And we're really excited that thousands and thousands of businesses across the state have taken part of that. In fact, I visited a local business in Hagerstown yesterday, Hub Labels, who offered to go one step ahead of that. And they have created window decals, stickers, in order to be able to get that message out to the customers as well. And it's a window decal saying that, you know, they are safely open for business, and they produce 10,000 of those for businesses across the state, and they'll be distributed through the local economic development offices. So big thanks to Hub Labels in Washington County. And right now we're actively in the process of putting together our public service announcements. As the governor likes to say, only you can keep Maryland open for business. And we have 3 weeks of advertisement that's going out on radio stations in every single county and jurisdiction in the state. And we're going to continue that for a period of time, hopefully until after Labor Day. And it's a series of announcements talking about the importance of wearing your mask. But I think more importantly, it's from people that we all know, like Mark Andrews from the Baltimore Ravens, whose message is we have to protect our flock. And we have Brandon Hyde from the Baltimore Orioles and other Orioles members. And we have other local celebrities that are going to be taking part in that messaging, as well as local business owners who are talking about how important it is for their peers to continue with the safe standards and the wearing of the masks and the other best practices that we talk about with the Department of Health and the CDC. And we even have one of our PSAs that is from an employee, actually a bartender, whose plea is, please don't put me out of work again. I want to continue to work, so let's all be safe in a safe manner. And I think that we might hear a similar type of message at 3:30 during the governor's press conference. But I'm happy to take questions at the end, Secretary, and if there's anything else, just let me know.
Great. Thanks very much, Secretary Schultz. Okay, moving on, we're going to hear from the Department of General Services, and they're represented today by Wendy Scott Napier, Assistant Secretary.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Secretary Peters. So the Department of General Services has been involved across our whole agency in various efforts to help with the recovery. Our Office of State Procurement has been on the front line with procuring ventilators, modular medical units, tents, PPE equipment, and many other materials needed. We have also been helping with setting up the field hospital at the Baltimore City Convention Center. We've set up several alternate care sites and testing centers as well. All of these efforts have been, of course, working very closely with the Maryland Department of Health. In my division, the real estate division, we've had to coordinate license agreements for the space needs that we've had. In addition, we've also been working on warehouse needs with all of this equipment and PPE supplies coming in. We had to procure additional warehouse space to secure all of the items. Our Business Enterprise Administration has been able to get several items from the Federal Surplus Property Program to redistribute to our local communities. They've been able to get food items, supplies, water, some masks, and have been working through local partners, the food banks and such, to distribute those items. Even in our fuel management office, we've been helping the National Guard with their efforts and the fuel needs that they had. Final item for us is our facilities operations and maintenance group. We have been working very hard to increase the cleaning, make sure that we have our security guards informed of the protocols as far as screening access to the building, and making sure those coming in are COVID-free to their knowledge. So we've been working very hard at General Services to try to support our state agency partners. I know the Commerce team was mentioning about working with local businesses. We've been doing some of that as well to really reach out to the local community, see who could help us with some of our PPE contracts and other needs that we have. And we look forward to continuing to guide the state and help with the recovery efforts. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate the information. So we have a short window of opportunity that we're able to get Cliff Mitchell from the Department of Health. Cliff, are you with us?
Mute. Am I unmuted now?
You are. Great. Great. Glad you could join us.
Yeah, Madam Secretary, and I really appreciate the opportunity to be here, and I apologize. It's a little bit of a hectic day. And I joined a little while ago, so I was able to hear Secretary Schultz and some of the other presenters. And what I guess I wanted to do was, obviously a lot of the attention has been focused on the department and our interaction with other agencies. And really in this context, this involves everybody from DGS to Commerce to the Department of Natural Resources to pretty much everybody. It's our first pandemic in 100 years. It is something that has obviously affected and will continue to affect every single aspect of everybody's working life. And so the governor's leadership in terms of providing guidance and directives and orders, and then the health department's role in trying to use the best available public health guidance to make sure that we navigate our ways successfully through this process, is something that has been, I think, it is something obviously that we will be talking about for a long time once it's done, or we won't want to talk about it at all once it's all done. But in the process, I think that it has really called into question pretty much all the operating assumptions that we have about everything we do on a daily basis, because we can't do it the way we normally do. So you're all familiar with the Roadmap to Recovery and the 4 pillars on which it's based. And I can take you a little bit through where we are with those and talk a little bit about where I think we might be headed. So with respect to testing capacity, you've heard that has been an unbelievable focus of the department. It has been, I think, the governor's leadership and that of the public health community, in the absence of a really strong federal coordinating effort, to stand up testing that allows the state to have some of the, not all by any means yet, but still an increased capacity to do testing. We're doing now routinely over 20,000 tests a day. That's still not sufficient in some respects to say, to do everything that we want to do. So we're talking about a number of other possibilities in terms of expanding testing further. And we're also looking at making sure that we are testing the right folks. Because one of the things we really want to do is make sure that we're testing the people who really need to be tested. At the end of the day, it's a pandemic. Everybody is at risk, but some people are more at risk than others. And it's really important that we reach those hard to reach populations that are particularly vulnerable. Strengthening public health surveillance. This is something that my colleague, Dr. Blythe, the state epidemiologist, and the department are doing a huge amount of work on, to try to understand where the spread is occurring, where the greatest risks are. We know that, for example, if you look at vulnerability by race and ethnicity, that rates are higher, for example, in the Spanish-speaking population. They may not have more serious disease when they're infected, but their risks of being infected are greater than some other populations. And that is true probably because of a combination of both workplace factors and also community factors. So those are the kinds of things that we're trying to do to understand the changing perspectives in terms of where the disease is spreading most rapidly, geographically, with respect to which race and ethnicity is, also looking at the changing patterns in age distribution, as we see now that there is a higher positivity rate in our young people, particularly in the age group of 20 to 29, which has been the subject of a lot of discussion recently with respect to facial covering and also social distancing, and making sure that people adhere to those requirements. Increasing our capacity to do contact tracing. So you know that we have stood up a very sophisticated and robust IT platform, COVID Link, which is integrated with our CRISP, our health information exchange, so that test results come in and go automatically, so that contact tracing can start as rapidly as possible. We are rolling that into everything that we do. We're starting to see some of the metrics out of that. We know it's a real challenge to reach people. It's a challenge partly because people don't like to answer their phone if it says COVID Link on it, and we're trying to message about that. We are absolutely trying to make sure that we look at alternate forms of communication and make sure that we are doing everything we can to identify people. We're talking a lot about the issues of identifying people when they may be close contacts in businesses and state agencies. and trying to figure out how to effectively manage when we've got people who are exposed or who become ill in or who work in state agencies. How do we effectively communicate with them, excuse me, do contact tracing, and make sure that that's coordinated with the external contact tracing event. And we also want to make sure that folks are supported if they have to be in isolation, because if they're not, there are disincentives to be in isolation. We know that that can be a reason for further spread. So it's really important that we have those social support structures that allow people to isolate safely. We've done a lot of work with the healthcare system to ensure that healthcare systems across the state have the kind of surge capacity if and when a larger surge occurs, and that's still not an impossibility. We want to be sure that our healthcare system is not overwhelmed. So it's really important, and we've done a lot of work in putting in additional medical surgical beds as well as intensive care beds, supplemental staffing, volunteer corps, and supply chain, as well as PPE, to make sure that everybody has what they need in order to treat people who are likely to become ill. I talked a little bit about essential workers, but this is really an issue that is a big concern for the business community. It's a big concern also in food protection and agriculture, in our correctional systems. We want to make sure that those populations are adequately protected, that we're doing surveillance on them, that we're testing them, and that the workers have both communication and the personal protective equipment that they need in order to be safe. So as we move ahead, we know that there are challenges, and you've all been, I'm sure, engaged in those conversations from a personal or a professional point of view. We're looking at schools and school reopening. We're looking at the higher education and higher education reopening. We're looking at how to do that safely, and there are not easy answers to any of these problems. These are challenges that, because this is an infection that can occur anywhere, because there is no immunity to it, because there is no vaccine and very few relatively effective medications, we will continue to see this for at least the balance of this year, and probably next year as well. We will be living with COVID and living with the altered life that this represents. As we look at how to mitigate those changes, we have to be thoughtful. We have to be considerate about the way in which we allow for life to continue, while not trying to overwhelm the healthcare and social systems that our most vulnerable depend on. So that's a sort of a 30-second overview, and I'm happy to answer questions. I unfortunately will have to leave at 3, but I think that I just wanted to share with you a little bit of what sort of life is like, and what we're sort of thinking about the months ahead.
Right. Thank you very much. We appreciate that really important information. We're going to move on right now. Secretary Schultz talked about collaborating a little bit with the Department of Housing and Community Development, and they're represented today by Carol Gilbert, who will talk a little bit about what they're doing. Carol? Okay, I think we might have a mute button issue. Carol Gilbert? Okay. I think what we'll do is we'll skip ahead to the next presenter. And if we can figure out the technical difficulty, we'll come back. Pleased to be joined by the Secretary from the Department of Labor, Tiffany Robinson.
Thank you. Can you hear me now, Wendy?
Oh, yes, we can. Thank you.
Perfect. You'd think by now we'd all have this mute button issue all worked out.
That's all right.
So happy to be here with everyone today. I will just kind of, we couldn't possibly fit everything that's been going on at the Department of Labor onto one slide. So I do have some unemployment updates, but I'm just gonna start off by kind of giving a little bit of an overview to remind everyone of all the things that have happened kind of thus far during the pandemic in our agency. Early on, our division of occupational and professional licensing extended the expiration dates through the state of emergency for all of those licensees so that they didn't have to worry about those renewals. Our financial regulation division has obviously been working very hard with our banking partners and with advocates in the community and with DHCD as well on their new eviction prevention work to really ensure that all borrowers across the state, business and residential, are getting the education that they need about working with their lender and their banking partner, and an understanding that if they are having a hardship due to COVID-related reasons, that our banking community has agreed to offer forbearance and modifications. So so far so good on that front. Our labor and industry division has been, we halted investigations for a short period of time, and we are actually back out in the community providing a lot of educational and safety posters and webinars and inspections, if businesses would like us to do that, to help businesses feel safe in bringing their employees back. So all of our divisions have kind of transitioned the way they did business, as I'm sure everyone's across state government has. Our workforce development division has been providing a ton of virtual workshops, and I'm actually going to start by mentioning the very last bullet on this slide, which was our workforce division came up with a plan early in the pandemic to create with all due to the governor's infusion of funding, a program called Layoff Aversion. And we were able to invest over $10 million into 445 small businesses and save nearly 9,000 jobs in the state of Maryland. So our program was slightly different than the larger grant and loan program run by Commerce because our program was intended to allow employees to keep their jobs. And so the things we were funding were, for example, sanitation services throughout the businesses to keep people safe. We funded a lot of remote access equipment so that businesses could stay afloat and keep their employees working remotely. We had all kinds of unique requests that met the requirements of this program, and we're just thrilled to be able to help those 9,000 Marylanders keep their jobs. And with that, I think everyone has probably heard most about the Department of Labor with respect to the extreme, overwhelming uptick in unemployment insurance claims. And I'd love to tell you that we're out of the water. We're not quite there yet. Last week, we still received over 33,000 brand new unemployment insurance claims. And to give you some perspective, back during the Great Recession, 2009, 2010, the highest average weekly claim filing during that Great Recession was 6,000 claims per week. So as you can imagine, 33,000 claims this past week on our downturn is still an extremely high volume. We've had weeks during the pandemic totaling over 100,000 claims filed per week. So we have had a complete paradigm shift in the Division of Unemployment Insurance in Maryland's Department of Labor to be able to address this unprecedented volume. I will now kind of go through the slide and give you just the highlights. As of last week, we have paid out over $5 billion in benefits to our claimants. I'm sure many of you may have seen a press conference where we announced a massive criminal enterprise and fraud scheme. I'm very thankful that due to our team's due diligence, we were able to block and intercept 47,500 fraudulent unemployment claims filed in our program, and that saved our taxpayers over $500 million. We have been working very closely since that detection on July 4th weekend with our federal partners at USDOL in the Office of Inspector General's office, as well as the U.S. Attorney's Office here in Baltimore, and as well as our banking partner, Bank of America. I have to give them a shout out because they really kind of did everything we needed them to do and acted very quickly all the way up to, corporate offices in and out of Maryland to make sure that we were able to block those claims and save our taxpayers that money. I like to remind everyone that our system has not experienced any breach whatsoever. Maryland's claim data is 100% secure. And we're thankful to our technology for that. The technology actually helped us detect some of this unusual activity. But unfortunately, these are criminals across the country utilizing stolen identities to file unemployment insurance claims. And so I would just mention that if you know anyone or if you hear of anyone worried about getting a strange notice in the mail or an employer getting a notice about an unemployment insurance claim for someone that has not filed that claim, we would ask that you please let us know about that immediately at ui.fraud@maryland.gov because it's still happening, and we have all kinds of measures in place now that we think we feel very confident that we are blocking every claim. But sometimes, as you can imagine, if the criminal has a social security number, a matching address, all the wage information, at the time of filing, it might pass social security verification. It might look like a very legitimate claim. And so we have to rely on all the measures that we have put in place to catch that. And if for some reason, someone gets a notice at any point in time, we want to make sure we're, double and triple checking that all of those claims are blocked. It's very important in order to protect the integrity of the program and ensure that all of our legitimate claimants who so desperately need that funding have it available to them. With that, the other program I wanted to mention today was our WorkShare program. We just issued a press release about this program yesterday. Thanks to the governor's office, who wanted to highlight some testimonials from businesses in Maryland who are utilizing this program. We have kind of increased the marketing of the program that has always existed because it's set up as a layoff aversion program. However, during this pandemic, we are making sure employers are aware that they can use the program as a way to slowly and safely bring back some of their employees. So the way this program works is that an employer can reduce the hours for any unit of employees from 20 to 50%. It just means that everyone in a similar unit their hours need to be reduced at a uniform amount. And our Division of Unemployment Insurance can pay those employees unemployment benefits to make up the portion of the lost wages. So the employee continues to get full pay, they keep their health benefits, the employer has reduced costs and is able to continue operating. So we are finding this to be a very exciting way for businesses to partner with our department in a new way and bring employees back to the workplace safely and help us get through this crisis. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions if anyone may have them. And thank you for the time to give an update.
Great. Thank you very much. We appreciate all that you're doing over there at Labor. I think we've solved the technical difficulty with regard to Carol Gilbert. And we're gonna, Carol, are you there? Maybe we haven't. Carol, We thought we had your mic worked out. If not, we can move on. Okay. We're going to move on now to the Department of Natural Resources. Secretary Jeannie Hadaway-Riccio.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to share some updates. Certainly can't talk about the pandemic without talking about outdoor recreation and parks. As people are looking to reduce their cabin fever and they're looking for safe, affordable activities to engage in, they are turning to our state and our local parks, which is definitely leading to capacity issues. In fact, so far this year, we have had 182 closures in our state parks. That's compared to about 75 this time last year. And we know that many local parks are experiencing the same thing. We've been trying to work with local jurisdictions and provide guidance on how to assist with those issues. And while this is a good problem to have, it is a problem nonetheless. And it does tell us that there is still a lot of demand in Maryland for green space and parks and outdoor recreational opportunities. So along those lines, our department is really proud of the fact that we launched what's called the Park Equity Tool. It was developed by our department with the University of Maryland School of Public Health, and it's a GIS mapping tool that will help everyone identify gaps in access and also amenities when it comes to green space and parks throughout the state. And it's a really powerful tool that will help local elected officials, planners, parks and recreation staff, and the general public in planning and making investment decisions going forward. And that is available publicly on our website right now. So I would encourage everyone to take a look and utilize that tool. Many of you have also asked about grants and funding opportunities through the department. I know you're familiar with program Open Space, Local Side, Rural Legacy, Community Parks and Playgrounds, and of course the Grants Gateway that we launched, which funds projects like pollution reduction, resiliency, waterway improvement, and environmental education and citizen engagement. And we've been very fortunate that funding has been available for fiscal year 2021, and all of the local jurisdictions should have received their notifications of awards by now. But looking forward at FY22, the pandemic has had a large impact on Maryland's budget as well as local government budgets. And so with revenues being down, there is some uncertainty about what FY22 may look like, and the fact that that could impact future funding. Of course, the governor has been a very strong advocate for federal assistance to the states to try to make our budgets whole and account for some of that revenue loss. In fact, he issued a statement today as chair of the National Governors Association, reiterating the importance of that. So that's something for all of us to keep an eye on and work together. And then last but certainly not least, I wanted to just talk about CARES Act assistance and the seafood industry. In May, the U.S. Department of Commerce announced the allocation of $300 million in fisheries assistance as a result of the passage of the Federal CARES Act. Of that $300 million, Maryland is eligible to receive $4.1 million. And so DNR will be submitting a draft spend plan to NOAA in August. NOAA will have approximately 30 days to review and provide feedback on that draft plan. And once a plan is approved, the department will work very quickly with NOAA Fisheries and the Atlantic States Marine Fisheries Commission to get that funding out as soon as possible. Eligible entities include both businesses and individuals that are involved in the seafood industry, from commercial watermen to aquaculture ventures to any other ancillary related business in that industry. And of course, we have been working very closely with the Maryland Department of Agriculture, the Department of Commerce, and the Maryland Restaurant Association on enhancing Maryland's Buy Local campaign. And we also launched a new marketing campaign called Keep Calm and Carry Out to encourage Marylanders to order local seafood and local agricultural products from Maryland restaurants. And that was an attempt to assist both the seafood industry, but also local businesses in the restaurant industry as well. And we've also been working with all of those departments and organizations on enhancing our marketing efforts around invasive species, i.e. blue catfish and snakehead fish. So this kind of gives us a dual benefit of getting invasive species out of our waters and also creating some new market opportunities for our state. So these are just some of the ways that we've been working to lessen the impacts of the pandemic and to assist our local partners. And we look forward to continuing to work with you to get through these unprecedented times. And I'm happy to answer any questions at the appropriate time.
Great. Thank you very much, Secretary Riccio. Now, just to remind everybody, we are taking questions. You can put them in the chat box. While they don't have formal presentations for this webinar, we are joined by the Director of the Maryland Energy Administration, Mary Tung, and also the Secretary for the Department of the Environment, Ben Grumble. So if you have any questions for them, we certainly will take those as well, and we're glad that they could join us today. We're moving on now to the Department of Transportation, and Deputy Secretary Earl Lewis will talk a little bit about what's happening in the road management recovery efforts.
Thank you, Secretary Peters. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Fantastic. So, like other agencies, MDOT has been affected dramatically by the COVID-19 pandemic. The good news is we're seeing signs of recovery across our Maryland transportation network. Year over year, through the end of last week, BWI passenger traffic is down 70%. It was down as high as 97% in April. MDTA customer traffic is down 22%. It was down as much as 58% in April. MTA ridership is down 58%. It was down about 78% in April. And the statewide weekly traffic is down 17%. It was down as much as 52% in April. Statewide weekly truck volumes are down 19%. It was down as much as about 28% in April. And the CGIRT monthly container units is down about 7.5%. It was down as much as 15.5% in March. So you can see truck traffic and the volume at the Port of Baltimore has been less impacted than many of our other modes of transportation. Vehicle traffic on our highways also has increased significantly in recent weeks, as you can see in the graph. Like many of you, a significant portion of MDOT's employees have been teleworking. As many as 5,500 are remotely accessing our networks every weekday. But we also have many frontline workers reporting to work every day at our port, the airport, the Maryland Motor Vehicle Administration, our transit system, highways, and toll facilities. And we're still moving forward with many major projects. July 10th, we released the draft environmental impact statement for the I-495, I-270 P3 program. The P3 program will dramatically decrease traffic congestion in the National Capital Region. The federally required DEIS includes traffic, environmental, engineering, and financial analyses of a no-build alternative and 6 build alternatives involving high occupancy tolls or hot lanes, express toll lanes or ETLs, and sometimes in combination with existing high occupancy vehicles or HOV lanes on I-270. As part of the review, MDOT SHA, the Federal Highway Administration, and the Maryland Department of the Environment will conduct 4 virtual and 2 in-person joint public hearings to provide opportunities for public comment. I want to stress that the I-495, I-270 P3 program will feature a transit component as well. You all know how important transit is when it comes to smart growth. Obviously, transit has been adversely impacted by the pandemic, but we're all very hopeful that it will significantly recover. Right now, our biggest transit project is the Purple Line, which I'm sure you've read a lot about recently. One thing I can say is that negotiations are ongoing, and we're all rowing in the same direction, as Secretary Slater likes to say. It still may be a bit of a roller coaster ride, but the state is committed to completing the project. And I think that's important for everyone to hear. We have many other projects progressing as well. The Bay Bridge repaving was completed early in the midst of the pandemic, and we switched to all electronic tolling. The Watkins Mill interchange was also completed during the pandemic. It It will improve access, mobility, and support economic development in that region of Montgomery County and the surrounding area. Elsewhere, we've been prioritizing transit service on our MDOT MTA lines to meet the demand. These lines are taking many essential employees to work, stores, appointments, and other locations. We've also reopened more and more of our MDOT MVA branches by appointment only and have already served several thousand customers. MDOT MVA even was able to launch the first phase of a new online system called Customer Connect in the middle of the pandemic. This will dramatically improve how we do business there. The resiliency of our employees is shown throughout this ordeal, and it's been incredible. I mean, we can't do it without a lot of great state workers. I realize I'm short on time, so to summarize, transportation has been hit hard by the pandemic. Some areas have been hit worse than others. We're seeing a slow, steady rebound in traffic and customers across our transportation network. We continue to work hard on projects, but we're doing so with the health and safety of our employees and the public in mind. I look forward to working more with the people that are involved in this Smart Growth Subcabinet meeting today. As the pandemic has shown, we're all stronger when we work together, and it's very important, as Secretary Slater says all the time, to be collaborative and work together and keep the lines of communication open. So thank you.
Thanks very much, Earl, or Deputy Secretary Lewis. I appreciate that presentation. We're now joined by Daniel Schuster from the Maryland Higher Education Commission to talk a little bit about what they're doing on the roadmap to recovery.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Hopefully you can hear me. I just want to warn everybody I have been having a little bit of technical difficulties through this seminar, and I've been cut off a couple of times. So hopefully that won't happen while I'm talking, but just to warn you in case it does.
You sound great now, so.
Okay, that's good. Hopefully it stays that way. So the first thing I wanted to mention, MHEC did receive a little bit of additional money related to the pandemic, and that was we received $10 million in federal governor's emergency education or GEAR funds. And this money specifically is going to be dispersed from MHEC to community colleges to assist in immediately expanding some of their existing workforce training and educational programs. The goal here is to provide additional opportunities for people who may have lost their jobs as a result of this pandemic. Maybe they need to be retrained in other areas so that they can be employed more quickly. And that is what those funds are for. It's really the only new money that we've gotten so far, but also I just want to point out a lot of our other existing programs, such as in the area of student financial aid and tax credits and that sort of thing, are taking on a much greater importance for people right now. And we've been fielding a lot of questions in those areas and trying to move those applications through quicker. In addition to that, I did want to point out one particular ongoing program and highlight that nurse support program, which assists healthcare professionals. In this program in June, we awarded $145,000 to 29 full-time nurse faculty to assist them in obtaining their credentialing, which ensures that Maryland's nursing programs maintain the highest quality education possible. This is an ongoing program. Funds are typically awarded annually. And it, as I said, it pays for the credentialing, allows recipients to pay for costs associated with their certified nurse educator credentials, which are issued through the National League for Nursing. Since the program's inception in 2019, we've given funds to 86 full-time faculty across 13 community college and 10 other four-year institutions in Maryland. And they have been recognized as certified nurse educators. This program, as I said, ensures that the highest standards of nursing education are being met and that our next generation of healthcare workers are fully prepared to enter the workforce. which, as we've seen during this pandemic, is certainly very important for everybody. Also regarding that program, in March, MHEC sent out a call to action to all of our partners who participate in the nurse support program, and that resulted in the donation of PPE and other important equipment from clinical simulation centers at the institutions in 29 nursing programs. And that equipment and PPE was then distributed throughout Maryland to healthcare facilities in need. Some of the examples of donated equipment included ventilators, eye protection goggles, face shields, N95 masks, gloves, disposable bags, biohazard garments, and also the equipment sometimes went to local health departments or to healthcare facilities themselves. Besides our new and ongoing programs, a lot of our focus has been on disseminating information. As you can imagine, in this time of uncertainty for everybody, there's a lot of questions. A lot of people contact our agency, institutions, students, a lot of different people, and we try to get the information to them about plans for reopening. There is a lot of information included on our website. You can find links to webinars that provide best practices for improving the quality of online learning. As a lot of people are switching to that mode. And there's also all the guidelines for reopening from the CDC and also for the American College Health Association. Their guidelines for reopening are on our website. There's also information about legal risks associated with reopening for institutions. And then in addition to what's on our website, when we're contacted by people, we try to point them in the right direction. For example, a lot of institutions will call with looking for guidance on how to handle things like testing or dining operations at their facilities, and we try to put them in contact with the right people. Usually it's local or state health officials. We emphasize that it's important to keep constant contact with those individuals because things may change, on a daily basis, and so therefore, what the plans are now, are subject to change, certainly. And then people have asked about guidance related to issues with some of the new regulations for reopening. New rules for operation may have some impact on civil rights issues or ADA issues. For example, some of the new protocols that are in place may there may be issues with students or staff complying with some of those new regulations, and therefore we might need to provide guidance on some of the ADA and civil rights issues in those areas. And then finally, we're keeping track of what all of the institutions are doing, specifically what are their plans for reopening, so that we can pass that information along to people. Certainly right now in the summer, most institutions are doing everything online still for some of their summer courses. And in the fall, the trends are to do a hybrid learning model where there's a lot of what can be done remote is still going to be done remote, but people are going to be introduced back onto campus to do things like studios and labs and a lot of the other clinical type classes that need to be held in person. But certainly other things are happening that are a lot of change. Schedules have changed. Morgan State, for example, is finishing all of their in-person stuff by Thanksgiving, and then afterwards they are going to go entirely remote. until the end of the semester, and that's to cut down on any issues related to people traveling away and coming back to campus. There's a lot of new safety protocols in place. Room capacity has been decreased. Housing density in dormitories has been decreased. Modifying classroom space to allow for social distancing. Modifying of traffic, pedestrian traffic, entrances, egresses of buildings, that sort of thing. So we're sort of trying to keep a track of all of the changes and all the things that a lot of different institutions are doing. And from our perspective, the main thing is to ensure that the information is shared as to what the best practices are, so that, as I said, all the institutions are probably doing things a little bit differently, but hopefully they have all the information about what everybody's doing so they can share that information with each other, and their reopening plans are successful no matter what they are. And as I said, the emphasis, anybody that contacts us, is all of these plans that people have in place now are certainly subject to change based on the the ongoing climate that changes on a day-to-day basis. So, as I say, we're just trying to keep everybody abreast of what everybody else is doing. So that's all I have for now. So I will be sticking around if people have questions later.
Great. Great. Thank you very much for that helpful information. We're now going to turn to Director Michael Higgs from the Department of Assessments and Taxation with a lot of really important information about some of the things they're doing, especially with regard to keeping things flowing for our business creation and businesses with their particular filings. Director Higgs.
Thank you, Secretary Peters, for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to be here and speak with everyone today. Maryland is indeed still open for business, thanks to the efforts of Governor Hogan and all my fellow cabinet members. For us, it has been a real challenge keeping up with all of the good standing status certifications that have been required for all of the various federal loan programs. It really has taxed our staff during this teleworking period when we weren't expecting that influx of work for all the companies that had anywhere from very minor problems with their charters to failure to file previous years' annual reports that kept them from being in good standing and getting access to those federal loan programs. So kudos to our staff for really pulling together and making sure that every Maryland business could access those funds. And we did that through telework accommodations, which really started last fall. We had a pilot program from our real property program that we were already looking into teleworking. So thankfully, when the pandemic hit, we were a little bit ahead of the game. We had already started swapping out desktops for laptops. So when the pandemic hit, we really escalated our laptop deployment and also got a whole bunch of feature phones, cell phones you can't play games on, and got those out to our employees so that they could continue to answer phones and keep work going from home. A large part of our efforts also involved reforming the workflow, the way we handle our work, shifting everything that we could from paper to online. We were able to, with the help of a couple of our application developers, rush some of our forms that were in process to get those online quickly. We also created shared emails for each of our programs with a goal of responding to every email within 24 hours. And unless there's an unexpected deluge due to some sort of filing deadline, then we're able to hit that 24-hour answer deadline extremely well thus far. E-signatures has also done remarkable for our internal processes. We had people who were at the very beginning of this driving into the office 30 or 40 miles a day to go in and sign documents that were needed and then go back home for the rest of their shift. So getting e-signatures for internal processes was a huge help for keeping people more efficient while teleworking, but it also helps for a couple of our external forms for some quick turnaround on the development side there. Online scheduling is in process, and we are going to be holding live appointments for people that need a little bit of extra help with their charter business filings. If they have a more complex transaction, lawyers doing mergers and acquisitions and such will be able to schedule online appointments to access our charter experts, and we expect to see that come available by September. Our in-office work has really been necessitated due to our paper processes that we still have as a legacy for our legacy systems. And in order to keep those working, we've gone above and beyond to get PPE. In the beginning, we had people driving around and buying up every box of hand wipes and sanitizer and masks that we could find. We have a lot of good partners. We heard from the DGS and their Office of Procurement, so I got to thank them. But we're also reconfiguring our public spaces. All 24 of our county offices have plexiglass that's installed in their public reception areas for when they reopen. And we also have a reconfigure that's in the planning stages right now for our charter public counter. And those will be going before the BPW, I believe, at the next hearing, and assuming we get the financing cleared, we're going to remake the charter public space so that we can start reopening to the public in a manner that's safe for both our employees and any customers that need SDAT services. So with that, I hope everyone got their July 1st tax bills and saw the assessment information on there. If there's anything I can do to help you guys, please feel free to reach out. Thank you very much.
Hi, this is Carol Gilbert. Can you hear me? My phone shows that it's unmuted. So
Okay,
Cheryl, we can hear you.
Okay, excellent. And sorry for all of the technology issues I've had, but I want to thank Secretary Peters and Secretary McCord for this opportunity to connect with our community partners. We do miss seeing you in person, but this seems to be working. Google Meets is getting a lot of use at the Department of Housing and Community Development. The department is 100% open for business. And in fact, we seem a bit busier than even the usual busy. We have, in the very early phases of the pandemic, responded by making sure we knew what our community partners' needs were in order that they might respond to the emerging pandemic. And for instance, some of our partners help people experiencing homelessness. And for those partners, we wanted to be very flexible about current grants that are in place in case they needed to reprogram awards for emergency purposes, such as deconcentrating shelters and isolating individuals that needed to be isolated. Secondly, we did receive early on notice of direct CARES Act funding through several federal programs, Community Development Block Grant, the Emergency Shelters Grant Program, and the Community Services Block Grant. And we worked to, in a very accelerated way, distribute those funds to eligible awardees. Thirdly, as Secretary Schultz and Secretary Robinson noted, they experienced a very high volume for certain of their programs. And our secretary was very keen to help with the surge needed, the labor force needed to address the surge. And upwards of 50 staff members were, part-time assigned to Commerce and Labor to work on their surges. And so I want to thank those departments. I think our volunteers were very impressed and exhilarated to be helping on the front line. Now we are launching our own high surge programs. One is the Maryland Nonprofit Recovery Initiative, which Secretary Schultz did refer to, and that was opened. The governor announced it several weeks ago, and we opened it last Wednesday for applications. And the portal is still open and will be open through Tuesday of next week. And that is providing very critical operating support for nonprofits that have experienced increases in expenses or decreases in revenue and fundraising directly related to COVID-19. We're offering grants of up to $50,000. And we've had a very high intake for that program. We've got about 850 applications in progress, and we expect to serve about 1,200 or so, 1,250 by the time the application closes next week on Tuesday. The other very important initiative that we're managing relates to eviction prevention. We've put together one federal source, the CDBG fund, and also the governor's allocation of coronavirus relief funds, CRF, to create the $30 million eviction prevention initiative that has two tracks. The first track is to make grant allocations to local governments that are standing up their local programs through their local housing agencies, and that is supported by the CDBG CARES Act funding. And then that's $20 million to local governments, county governments, and $10 million. The remaining $10 million is administered by DHCD to go directly to affordable housing buildings where there's a very vulnerable by income or disability population that we certainly want to make sure stay housed. So that funding is going to help with rent arrears at our affordable housing projects. We are also continuing on time to deliver the usual array of programs that DHCD has to offer through our Neighborhood Revitalization Division and our Community Development Administration. One that's very popular, one set of programs that are popular, will be announcing soon as open our State Revitalization Program. And so within a few weeks, we'll be announcing that opening, and we'll accelerate on our end the processing of applications, and we'll have more to say soon about the exact deadline for that. I do also just want to thank SSTAT, as the prior speaker mentioned. These surge programs often require a lot of documentation, and that's also true for our nonprofit NORI initiative. And so thank you to SSTAT for keeping up to speed on those documents that are important to all these applications that we're processing across all our state agencies. Thanks.
Great, thank you very much. I would remind everybody that we are taking questions. We're going to move into the public forum aspect, but before we do that, we do have an important question with regard to census, and Secretary McCord will just clarify some of the dates that he talked about. Secretary McCord, are you there to join us? Uh-oh.
There you go. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay. Great. Thank you, Secretary Peters. I want to make sure that everybody understands that the census counting process will continue until October 31st of this year. The numbers delivered to the states for the redistricting purposes and every other purpose we need the numbers for will not happen until July 31st, 2021. So the schedule is they need to get the counting done by the 31st of October, by Halloween. And then the processing of all those numbers happens in the time from the count being finished until they deliver the numbers to the president and then to the Congress and then ultimately to the states. And that process of getting the numbers to the states is somewhere between April 1st of 2021 and July 31st of 2021. That's what I was trying to indicate, that the process that the census uses to count, they can change, and they have till October 31st, 2020. But the process of getting the numbers to the states will take action by the Congress, and only half of the Congress has voted on that at this point. The Senate has not acted on it, but that won't happen until 2021. So hopefully that's the clarification that somebody needed there.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank
Do we
you.
have, I would also open it up to any of the secretaries who want to double back to emphasize anything, or if Secretary Grumbles or Director Tung would like to bring anything to the audience's attention. We also, as we said, it's an opportunity to hear now from the audience if they have any particular questions. As you probably have known or witnessed since the beginning of the first administration, so many of these cabinet officials are always accessible. We pride ourselves in customer service and responding to our local government partners and constituents. So if you think of a question later, you can certainly reach out to us, and we're more than happy to help and answer that question. Do we have somebody else on the line that wants to speak? Okay. All right, I think that we're pretty good. We don't seem to have any particular questions. One thing that I would just like to give a special thanks to Chuck Boyd and to John Coleman for their work in putting together this webinar. I think what you've been able to see from the information provided across this cabinet is that we truly are open for business. We truly are on the road for recovery. We're streamlining our operations, we're collaborating, we're using innovation to address potential roadblocks, and you know, so many of us have said we know that we need to work with our local partners, and we're pleased and proud to be able to do that. So I thank everyone for their participation, and my colleagues, especially in the administration, for their valuable work and the presentations that they had today. And I thank all of you out there for joining us, and we look forward to continuing to work together as we face the road to recovery together. Thank you very much.
Take care, Wendy. Thank you.